Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Friday edition of Moohead Radio. I'm your host, a big and furry bovine. Joining me so far on the panel are Jake and Rick and Brian, and who knows who might show up next. One thing we can tell you, it won't be Swagger. Unfortunately, the former Browns mascot who retired last year passed away. And, dog fans, I don't mean Browns fans, I mean dog fans. I love dogs. Did you hear about that, Topaz? The doggy nation is in despair. I wanted to think of the best thing that I could say as kind of like an epitaph to
Oh, that was the
Swagger.
Bull Mastiff, wasn't it?
The Bull Mastiff, that's right.
Okay.
And he was only 6 years old, and he passed away from cancer. And here's what which he had been diagnosed with a year earlier. So I came up with this as his epitaph, and I want this on his gravestone. He ran harder than OBJ. He fought harder than the Cleveland Browns, and he was smarter than Freddie Kitchens. And that's it. I think that pretty well covers it for me.
He finished his route.
Yeah, my goodness. I mean, can you imagine the poor animal had to endure 1-31? And that bringing in Andrew Berry probably finished him off. Oh!
Yep. And he had a worse hip, too. And he had a worse hip as well in his old age than OBJ. And still ran harder.
I mean, can you imagine? I mean, you want to talk about full circle. Oh, he could have survived the cancer, but not the Andrew Berry hiring. Oh!
I just looked up and said, seriously?
Yeah, it's like...
Really?
Groundhog Day. Oh, pain and suffering and misery. It's a horrible
Seacrest
thing.
out.
Yeah, God.
Was he told the analytics of how likely he was to survive the cancer by Andrew Berry?
Oh, that's true. D. Podesta. Yeah, because,
Yeah, but 0.02% chance. Oh, well. See ya.
Yeah, I mean, and unfortunately, that's about how long dogs can live with cancer. They don't live much longer than that. So a sad farewell to a former mascot, and we loved Swagger, and he didn't ever get to run nearly as much, especially with Johnny Manziel as the quarterback. That was like really fucked up. I mean, it's like supposed to get fired up every time we score, and there's Swagger sitting there just waiting. It's like...
At least when he ran, he knew where he was going anyway.
That's exactly right, which made him a whole hell of a lot better. Yeah. And the fact that he caught cancer, he caught something, which is a hell of a lot better than Damian Ratley.
He held on to that,
Yeah.
Or Antonio Callaway.
Yeah. Or Coleman.
I also
By the way, Callaway is on his XFL team, and he's already injured.
His name is going to be I Hate Him.
Or who loves me.
I wanted to move on to the next thing because I love double standards more than anything else in the world. I love a good double standard. And, of course, Pete Rose and his attorneys are looking to get, reinstated, and so that he's eligible for the Hall of Fame. And, I've come to the conclusion that Pete Rose is baseball's Colin Kaepernick. He's a guy who just keeps wounding himself, and the more he wants something, the more he antagonizes the people he wants it from. And it's this amazing magnetic thing. So you have Pete Rose saying, now wait a minute here, players are not even being punished for knowingly cheating and totally changing the outcome of games. I didn't do that. I just bet on them. And I can't get
Bet
back
on his
in.
own team to win.
Scott
Mind you.
free. Scott, yeah, but you know, he didn't change the outcome of the motherfucking game.
Well, no, but no. Well, he coached harder to win.
Well, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, I don't like Pete Rose, but I mean, it's almost impossible, except for Major League Baseball, to deny him because there is no credibility in this game. There is no integrity in the game. There never was any integrity in the game. Black people couldn't even play the game. I mean, Jesus Christ. We had to wait until the Cleveland Indians, who were the worst team in baseball then, to hire the first black manager in baseball. And that was during my fucking lifetime, 1975. 1975?
And he was a
Major League
player
Base-
manager.
Yeah. Major League Baseball, ladies and germs. I mean, you got to be kidding
Frank
me.
Robinson.
Legitimate, the legitimacy of the game of baseball. Like Major League Baseball in its history has ever given a flying fuck about what's right and what's wrong. And, you know, they want to just make this whole Astros thing go away. Make it stop!
Maybe Rose was ticked off because he bet on some Astros games and they cost him.
That's probably if I'd have only known, God, why didn't I think of the cheating thing when I was a manager?
They
You know,
cost me thousands. I want them banished for life.
there's
Eric
nothing,
said that anyway.
there's nothing likable about Pete Rose. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there is nothing likable about that piece of
Well,
shit.
to me, they should at least allow him in as a player
That's correct. I mean, the guy.
because of his profession, his major league accomplishments. I mean, he played 21 or 22 fucking years as a player.
Yeah, and
You know.
and this again, Bronk is invoking the name of the Black Cow of Death, and you know, you do this, and I thought he was relatively benign for quite a while. That's not a word I'm going to use around Swagger. The word benign is not a bad choice of words. I'm so very sorry. But
Stay
Jake
away
is
from
sitting-
malignant too.
Poor Jake is sitting there with his headset on, shaking his head and saying, "This is so goddamn inappropriate." But you know. Yeah, go ahead, Rick. Tell everybody who's dead.
Well, Willie Wood, who was a defensive back from the Packers, passed away earlier this week. I believe Alzheimer's, I believe, was the cause. And
No
today,
more Morning Wood.
Nope.
Okay.
And today, Roger Kahn, the author of The Boys of Summer, passed away, but age of 92. So he got his shots in. So.
Oh. And you know, I just hope that Ricardo Montalban Khan doesn't pass away soon. You know, but you know, we were talking before the show that Kirk Douglas died at 103, and it will tell you, you know, and it's what his son Michael never figured out. You just, as long as you're not eating pussy, you're going to live a very long life. Thanks so much, Michael Douglas, for reminding us that eating pussy causes cancer. Thank you. But Kirk Douglas was a clean living man. And, you know, it's amazing. 103 years old. And he was slated to be in the next Rocky movie. He was going to be Rocky's final opponent. Literally was a pushover. I know, it's inappropriate. The whole program's inappropriate because and you notice how the audience is like diminished. And I told you that this was going to happen because it's, what was his name? Roy Orbison. It's over. It's over. Yeah, like that. So at any rate, I think Pete Rose should be reinstated just so that baseball takes another one to the chin. You know, it's like, fuck baseball. The Cleveland Browns, meanwhile, there's two pieces of news. Chris Kiffin is joining Joe Woods as the Browns defensive line coach. And, you know, this was the guy who was their pass rush specialist on the 49ers. Of course, he had a couple of really good players up front, you know, Eric Armstead and Nick Bosa. You know, the good news in all of this is that Joe Woods is sticking with the 4-3 defense. Now, I wanted to go over to the panel and ask you guys, did this surprise you? We'll start with you, Jake.
Well, at this point, I don't see much talent to fit either defense. We don't really have any linebackers left. So at this, unless we like the two rookies we drafted last year, I think it's pretty open to the change or keep whoever they brought in because it doesn't really matter. The talent's gone, we've never had it. But they have to get linebackers anyways. I mean, no one's on contract, so it doesn't really matter what they change to.
Well, and
they might have to do something with the line.
You bring that up, Jake, and
But-
everyone's going to say, "Well, gosh, what do you think we're going to do with the number 10 pick?" And I'll tell you, you can get a balls to the wall middle linebacker. You can, and I'm sick and tired of seeing, like the Steelers getting a guy. Who was that? Devin Bush? Is that the guy that they got? And and developing one good linebacker after another. At 10, you can get that. And, and I know people are like, well, we need offensive tackles, but you can't take an offensive tackle with number 10. You're going to need to, I want a guy who can hit, man. I want a guy who's a headhunter and is just a human missile.
And just look at last year. Devin Bush is a borderline star to guaranteed starter. Who was the guy that everyone liked from LSU last year? Was not very good last year. Remember him in the draft?
No, I mean when they don't do anything, you never hear of them again.
Yeah.
That's what it
His last name was White, I think, from LSU.
Oh, wasn't
it
that
Devin? Was it Devin
the other
White?
Devin? That was the
Yeah,
other Devin.
White,
His
yeah.
name was
and
Devin also.
Was not very good. And
Oh
the
my
less
God.
talented guy showed up.
A rock sighting.
But yeah, you can't really just take the most talented linebacker. Take the fiercest one. I agree, but yeah, I don't know. You could find lineman later in the draft, I think, or trade down if you don't want to go for a linebacker early.
So what's the picture behind you, Rox? Give us the significance of the picture behind you.
I really don't know. I'm at my sister's house, and that is one of her photos or pieces of art. So I don't know what that is.
Oh, I'm glad you used the word art because pieces of is also followed by something else very frequently. So
8?
good.
At least now we're talking about the Browns, huh?
Yeah.
Are
But yeah, it
on
appears
the-
to be
are
a
we on
child
the
singing
6
in a
album
choir.
titles now?
Hold on. One at a time. Rox, what did you say? I'm sorry.
I said it appears to be a child singing in a choir.
Ah, okay. And what did you say, Brian?
I said, are we on to Styx album titles now? Pieces of 8?
Oh gosh, how many Styx albums can you name by title?
Let's see,
Welcome
Mr. Roboto.
to the Grand Illusion. I
Yeah,
remember-
Grand Illusion. That was
remember.
before Pieces of 8.
And then
Um,
Domo Arigato, Mr. Roboto. All right, I remember that piece of
Yeah,
shit.
Kilroy was here.
Kilroy.
Yeah,
That's
that was on
Kilroy.
that
Yeah.
And then there was Paradise Theater.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Let's see.
Was that the Desert Moon song? Yes,
No, that was
No, that was a solo album.
Oh, a solo album. Okay, yeah.
That came like 7 years after that one.
Yeah, what the hell do I know? Styx was like, and I remember what was the first Styx album I ever had?
It probably had Come Sail Away on it.
No.
Dave?
No. This was before they actually had the big hit they didn't really have a big hit until like 1977, I want to say. But 75, it was the first album Tommy Shaw joined the band. And I remember Mademoiselle was a single and it didn't go anywhere. Tell me where are you going, sweet Mademoiselle? Yeah.
No, Sweet Madam Blue
No, I
was
mean,
the name of the song. Sweet Madam Blue.
no, I don't know. I don't remember the names of the albums, but Styx 1 and Styx 2 probably. Probably right. What the hell is that? Is somebody blowing their nose? Or worse yet, something else or someone else.
I think it wasn't me. I was muted. But
All right. So,
It was probably me moving my laptop around.
Oh, okay. Rick, keeping the 4-3 defense, do you think this tips the hand that we're going to actually get a linebacker at 10?
It could. I'll be curious to see if the fact that they're going to go or stick with the 4-3. Is this going to change anything with regard to whether or not to keep Kirksey? What about Joe Schobert? And then because the offensive lineman, there's a lot of good ones in the draft, and they can probably pick one up later on. Either they can trade down, maybe get one late first round, or second round, and maybe use a linebacker, try to get a linebacker on the first round. And there's probably some good linebackers out there. So, but I'll be curious to see, with the linebackers we have now, what do we do with them? Do we hang on to them now, like I said, Kirksey, Schobert, or do we just wish them well and just cut them loose?
By the way, Crystal Ball. Thank you, Bronk. That was the name of the album back in '75. So thank you, Bronk. I knew I could count on somebody in the chat room. Brian, staying with the 4-3 defense, good, bad, or indifferent?
Good as far as they know what kind of talent to acquire, especially up front. I think they're going to be replacing Richardson and Vernon as well. I kind of disagree with the sentiment that I think Kirksey is still a pretty good linebacker, so I don't think that the linebacker drawer is as empty as people think. I mean, I understand you don't want to miss 50 tackles in a season, but we did have some pretty good plays coming from the linebacking core last year. So,
yeah, I mean, my way of looking at it is I'm so sick of bouncing back and forth for the 3-4 and the idea of having to have Myles Garrett trying to play as an outside linebacker. I mean, it was ludicrous to me. 4-3 is the way to go, but like anything else, it's the 4 is one thing, but you need to have. I mean, Kirksey is never healthy. He's never healthy, and Schobert is, I think, amplified because we quit in games and too many guys run through the defensive line and the linebackers make tackles. So tackle stats don't mean a hell of a lot. And yards after contact has always been a huge problem for the undersized Schobert. So, I want to draft a linebacker at 10 and do this thing right once and for all. We never do this in Cleveland. When was the last time? I mean, and if you're going to say Clay Matthews, I'm going to shoot myself. But when in the hell was the last time the Cleveland Browns went out? And if you say Chip Banks, I'm going to kick you in the nutsack. When was the last time the Browns actually went out and got, if you say Tom Cousineau, I am going to gag you with my penis. Now, when did the Browns go to the draft and get a dominant linebacker who became an all-pro guy consistently?
Yeah. Yeah.
I got nothing.
Was Eddie Johnson ever an all-pro?
Who?
Eddie Johnson?
Eddie Johnson actually, he went to Louisville, and he was an undersized guy, but boy, he had a lot of fight in him. And the other one would be Mike Johnson, who was the middle linebacker on the same teams. Yeah, I mean, the thing is that you need a guy with an incredible motor, but at number 10, you should be able to get a guy with an incredible motor who also has size and is able to cause turnovers, is an active blitzer, all of that kind of thing. So, yeah, Mike Junket and Clifford Charlton, thank you so much, Bronk. I appreciate it. I know all the whiffs that we've had at the position. Wally Rayner.
Jameer Miller came over from. He was drafted by the Cardinals.
Cardinals. Yeah, I know, and and he was a good player, but that's not somebody that we groomed.
DeQuell tried to hold it down, right? DeQuell Jackson for a while tough guy for a couple years.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember the one guy who was, oh man, I think he went to Kansas. Why am I thinking he went to Kansas? Grayson was another guy they said could run like a deer, but the problem is he didn't know what he was running toward. Not to mention Barkevius Mingo, who I'm not sure what position
And he had the
he ever
strange
played
thing
anywhere.
of trying to jump across highways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had
Stare at
a
the
sack the
headlights.
first play of his career, and that might be the only pressure he's ever had in his career.
So I'm happy we're staying with the 4-3, but we need a linebacker. We need more than a linebacker, obviously. But I think the offense automatically improves now that Freddie Kitchens is gone. I think there's any organization and discipline that Stefanski can bring into place is going to help the offense. The defense is obviously I don't know. I think the problem with veteran guys, the Sheldon Richardson type guys, the Olivier Vernon kind of guys, is that when they see the season take a turn for the worse, very often they just, it's like, fuck it, I can get another year or two out of my body. I'm not going to bust my ass out there. And, young guys who haven't made their bones, that's one thing. But a lot of veteran players just kind of break down and say, nobody cares about winning around here, so I don't either. I'm just going to collect my paycheck. We've seen it over and over. So that's that. Moving on to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I know with that you're going to see a major plummet in the viewership figures.
You're the Stampede now.
From 15 down to 2.
It'll be a very intimate program, It'll be. Yeah, it will be like the only threesome in podcast history. It's like something really to look forward to.
Yeah.
I actually did that once. I actually set a record. It was when I had a co-host and there were two of us and one viewer. We outnumbered him. So we slammed that son of a bitch. He couldn't get anything by us, man. I mean, we just stonewalled him. God. Yeah, so that's what we're headed toward. The Cavaliers have acquired Andre Drummond, and everybody is saying why. And I think this is pretty easy, is they gave up like fucking nothing. I mean, look at the people they gave up. I mean, John Henson, who's a Muppet. The guy is a Muppet, and for God's sakes, he is literally crippled all the time. Henson's always crippled all the time, and Brandon Knight, oh my knee, Brandon Knight, and and a second round pick in 2023. It's like the Pistons are like, would you please leave? And the Cavaliers said, you know something? I don't think we're going to re-sign Drummond necessarily, but we can rent him for 30 days and we get rid of John Henson and Brandon Knight. Everything's good.
Snap him up.
Yeah, what's worse? You were traded to Cleveland, or you literally had no value, and that's what they ended up getting for you.
Yeah, and you can figure how enthused Andre Drummond is. First of all, with the trade market, it's like the whole marketplace has just collapsed. All right, and if you're an Andre Drummond, or there's so many different players who fit into this name because they're all of the same ilk. You're going to bounce around from the Pistons to the Cavaliers, and then there's Tony the Cavs, Minnesota Timberwolves. And I want to bring something up because Tony is never here to scoop up the shit that he starts, okay? But do you remember when he was blowing Andrew Wiggins? Do you remember this? And he was touting him as going to be a great player, and it's like, the Cavaliers raped the Timberwolves with the Kevin Love thing. They gave them a guy who they had to chase out of town. Literally, I don't know if you saw what they got, but I mean, First of all, D'Angelo Russell has been with 4 teams in 5 years. Either he has tremendous body odor, okay? Now, who is the Cavaliers player? The guy who was, he was a, oh, God, he was number 3, I want to say, for the Cavaliers. Oh, I forget. The guy was famous for having the most atrocious body odor in the league, and that was his defense. He would just raise his arm, and people would in the front row watching the game would pass out. The seats were devalued. Jack Nicholson, God only knows. I mean, you know, it's like devaluing the best seat in the house. And I forget his name. Oh, I can't believe I've forgotten him. But he was a guy who came from overseas, and but that's
Chanel.
no. I think Bronk might remember him. Just Bronk, the smelly guy who played for the Cavaliers. Who was it? And there's a list too
Glad
long.
you could
You know?
narrow that field down, huh?
That's a broad definition now, isn't it? And of course, Bronk is comparing D'Angelo Russell to the disease that killed Swagger. Nothing quite like inappropriate conversation in the chat room as well. But so you get D'Angelo Russell, and I actually did write to Tony the Calf on Twitter, and he says, "Yeah, we're starting a rebuild with Karl Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell."
Zilgauskas?
No, Big Z had bad feet, but not bad body odor. Oh God, I don't remember the guy's name. I can't remember, but I will
Well,
remember.
Petrovic
on a
played for
future show.
the Petrovic played for the Nets.
Yeah, but it was that kind of a name. He was another guy who was like
Pavlovic?
Croatian or something.
Sasha
Sa-
Pavlovich?
Yeah, that was him, Sasha Pavlovich. Yes.
Because he played defense?
Yeah, by
was
raising
the
his
quarter,
arm. Everybody, I talked to.
I just
people
know
in
he had
the
a weird shot and always shot a corner 3. That's all I remember. He was
Yeah.
always a corner 3 guy with Damon Jones.
And I'll tell you, I heard from people, firsthand reporters, that nobody would get near his quadrant of the locker room because the guy stank. I mean, it was just horrible. Just a horrible thing.
So his defense was being offensive. So
It's all the garlic that they eat.
I don't know what it is, but it was make it stop. But at any rate, so you know, you have the Timberwolves. They get D'Angelo Russell. They get rid of Andrew Wiggins, but the Timberwolves gave up picks. It's like, would you please leave? You know, anything to get rid of Andrew Wiggins, because they become millionaires, multimillionaires. They're going to get a second contract, and they never improve their skill set. And they end up playing in Minnesota, which will never win anything ever. The Cavaliers at least won 1 title, and now the Cavaliers will never do anything ever again. Well, the Timberwolves never will. There is no rebuild in the vast wastelands of these NBA markets. You know, it's pretty sad when the whole, you know, trade deadline thing is like, it's the Clippers versus the Lakers. I mean, it's like, not this again. I mean, it's like
I
they're...
have a question too about this.
Yeah.
Since when is Russell a wanted commodity? I feel like he's a very, very, very poor man's Damian Lillard that is less efficient and doesn't win games. I don't understand why he's such a value in the league. I don't know. Anyone else explain that to me? I don't know why he's such a big name.
And I don't
He had one good
understand
year
why...
with the Nets.
Yeah, and not only that, but I don't understand why people think they're going to change the essence of a player. It's like, you know, when the Cavaliers, you know, it's like, let's get rid of Dion Waiters. I'm like, yes! I mean, fucking Dion Waiters has been reprimanded more times by the Miami Heat, you know, and now he's gone. And Dion Waiters was an absolute bozo. And you know it, because you see it over and over again in the league. And Andrew Wiggins is a guy who's just another volume shooting, Ricky Davis, me first, play no defense guy who nobody's going to win with. I mean, and it's the same thing's true of D'Angelo Russell. I mean, he was supposed to be a cog for the Nets, a cog for the Lakers, a cog, I don't know where all he played. The guy literally was supposed to be an important ingredient everywhere he went, and all he did was buy himself a ticket out of town every time. So, and it's staggering that for a former number one overall pick, that you had to give away picks on top of him just to get D'Angelo Russell. That is frightening. But the Cavaliers, they have no center. And, honestly, the trade market was horrendous. No Tristan Thompson deal. Nobody was going to pay the contractual money for this guy. Nobody was going to make a deal for Kevin Love. He's 31, going on, 74. And, and the way we're going to see the best Kevin Love is with Drummond in the middle. Love can camp out on the perimeter and shoot open threes. That's going to be what's going to make Kevin Love better, is that he's not going to have to bang his body down low. But when the contract expires, that's when these guys will get picked up by somebody, but nobody's picking up these deals. So how do you get better? So the Cavaliers get Andre Drummond for 30 whole whopping games. And Andre Drummond is like, because not only is it, God, it's like I came across the lake and I opened up my eyes and it's like, it's worse than Detroit. And then Detroit's 19-34, and Andre wasn't thinking, it's going to get worse for me. But then you stop and think about it, and it's like, where's he going to go? They owe him, $26.4 million. That's how much his contract calls for next year. No, he's going to rush into that damn thing. Not with the way the league is looking right now, because honestly, there are a bunch of teams that are trying to be the 6th, 7th, and 8th seeds. That's it. This has been narrowed down to a couple of teams, So now you have the Bucks, who are in the driver's seat. You have the underachieving Sixers. You have the Celtics, okay? That's the three here. Then you got the Clippers. You got the Lakers. And who else in the West?
The Rockets, maybe, if you count them, teams, if you're including teams that have players 6'6" and under.
Yeah, so
they got rid of Capella, so they don't have a big man anymore.
5 teams. There are 5 fucking teams.
You have the massively overachieving Heat, 18 games over 500.
Yeah.
They're playing really well.
Yeah, but there are really 5 teams. There are really 5 teams in the NBA, if that. And the rest of the teams are fighting for mediocrity. And the Pistons thought they'd achieved mediocrity, and then the bottom fell out. And the Timberwolves, they were supposed to be building with Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns, and and just kaput. 11-game losing streaks, and it just horrible circumstance in Minnesota. And
did they introduce like 7 different new players today at Minnesota? Besides, the trade for Wiggins, they lined them all up. There's like 7 new players all holding jerseys. It's like they just completely wiped out their entire team. And okay, Towns, here's your new playmates. Good luck.
Rebuilding. And if we hear that word one more time, the Cavaliers, on the other hand, Kobe Altman isn't sitting there saying, yeah, we're going to get a deal done with this guy next year. But one thing I do like about having Andre Drummond is that he can actually change the arc of shots, and there won't be so many easy layups, which the Cavaliers give up a ton of those every game. And yes, I do watch the games, to all you filthy cocksuckers out there who insist I don't. Nothing personal, but you are filthy cocksuckers. But he can change the arc of a shot. He is a low post guy who's big, who's truly a 5. Okay, he's not a stretch 5, which I know everybody likes stretch today. But what that will do is it may sharpen the passing skills of Darius Garland for the pick and roll, because Drummond will be a viable pick and roll kind of guy. And what I'm hoping is that Andre Drummond drives a really large car and runs over Jetty Osman so that he'll never play again. And other than that, those are the things that I see as real potential positives about Andre Drummond. I don't think he's going to be here for long, but I do think that it might actually help young players to actually have a true center on the team rather than a Tristan Thompson or a Kevin Love who are just, you know,
Really
double-
power forwards trying to play center.
Well, Double T is a power forward with no range, and Kevin Love now is a 3-point threat and a scorer, and he can still rebound, but it's not the same as it was. He's got problems physically. So I think it will help the Cavaliers in a rotational sense too, but they're stuck holding the bill on these players who they paid a ton of money for, and all these other teams, rather than picking up these, you know, quasi mediocre kinds of players for short periods of time, they'd rather just turn to the draft, which is crazy because the draft isn't even 2 rounds deep in the NBA these days. And, you know, I've been watching Zion Williamson, so he has looked pretty damn good, you know, but he's still injury prone. And, you know, we're waiting for it to happen. And, you know, and of course the Pelicans are still losing with him. So it doesn't really matter because the Pelicans aren't going anywhere anyway. And actually, I think Zion was happy. Zion and his father were happy because there's a lot of fattening food, you know, in his new city. So, but it's...
Oh, look, beignets.
Exactly.
Come on, Fat Tuesday.
What the hell is a cannoli? I don't know, but they damn tasty.
No, he's in such bad physical condition. It's beignets in the morning and Ben Gay at night. Thank you. So, yeah, I guess the trade deadline came and went, and it was just, you know, for Los Angeles fans only, you know? For your eyes only. And of course, the headline, they haven't talked a long-term deal with Andre Drummond because Andre Drummond is still shell-shocked that he's in Cleveland. Let's be honest about it. It's like, you know, another thing I want to tell the organization of the Cavaliers, all right? And I would say it in absolute, clear, plain English, okay? And that is, you cannot win in the NBA with 2 6-foot guards on the floor at the same time. It is physically impossible. They will mismatch you until hell freezes over. And I don't understand why the organization thinks that Colin Sexton and Darius Garland can be an effective 1-2 punch when they are literally being backed down to the rim by D-League players who are just simply bigger and stronger. So I think I said that pretty clearly for Dan Gilbert. I mean, come on. You can't do it with 6'0" players. They're Lilliputians in the land of the giants. It doesn't work.
Like the old grandmama ad, 3-point land, but I'm a power player.
Yeah, it's and then for all you Indians fans waiting for Francisco Lindor to just go away and go someplace and become great there. Hey, the Indians are nearing a deal with Domingo Santana. I thought we were going for Carlos Santana. Or Ricky Santana.
Santana Moss or something.
Yeah.
Eddie.
Moss.
The
Doesn't
you
matter.
know,
Football. Who cares?
a big league deal worth just over $1 million for this guy, and of course, this will be the second baseman is Cesar Hernandez. I don't say Cesar, it's Cesar. That's how you know it's Cesar. It is not Caesar. That is a salad. Fuck you. All right. All right. So that's our big haul. Okay. What we can say about this guy is that he's really kind of like a Franmil Reyes. He's another 6'5", 220-pound guy who hits around 240, 250. He hit 21 home runs last year. He struck out 164 times in 121 games. Does this sound familiar? It's unbelievable.
Didn't he lead the league in throwing errors too?
He may well have, but when you strike out 164 times at 121 games, and the guys who struck out the most struck out 178 times in a full season, you know that Santana is not exactly a contact hitter. All right. If you haven't heard about Franmil Reyes, he's lost 18 pounds to prove that he can play right field, and we've seen this before too. Who is the guy that? Was it Bobby Bradley? The guy was the minor league guy who lost all the weight and he lost all of his power. Hickory Dickory Dock, wasn't that the story?
That's him. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, shit, what happened to my swing? Shit, those 18 pounds make a difference, He can drive his dick about an inch further into his girlfriend and the power that he needs. Yeah, so at any rate, he's never going to be a great outfielder, and maybe he will deprive himself of hitting home runs altogether. If you're wondering where Santana's been, he's been with a black magic woman for years. You know what's interesting about black magic woman? This will be a good one.
All right.
I mean, if I said black magic woman, you would say
Santana, first
Right.
album.
Right. And who wrote Black Magic Woman?
Wasn't that Greg Rowley?
With what band? What band wrote it? Oh, no, Rox. You're not going to sit there and Google this because I already know the answer. Yeah. The guy who was the lead player of the original Fleetwood Mac, their lead guitarist, Peter Green.
Peter Green. Okay, yeah.
Peter Green wrote Black
That's
Magic
right.
Woman.
Fleetwood Mac played that on one of their albums, the early ones.
Hey, Rox. I beat you. Okay.
I'll let you win that one.
No, you weren't going to win. Not for the win. No. Peter Green wrote the song and recorded it. You can go on YouTube and listen to Peter Green performing the song, and it's not at all radically different from Carlos Santana, yet it became the signature song of Santana. I just thought I would interject that, seeing as how we were talking about somebody named Santana. If you're wondering where he has been, he's been with Houston, where he cheated, Milwaukee, where he drank beer, and Seattle, where he drank coffee. His best season was with the Brewers when he hit 278 with 30 home runs, but he was easily replaced by the one-season wonder, Jose Aguilar. What happened to Aguilar last year? What happened to him?
He had a Chris Davis.
Yeah, Chris Davis syndrome.
Can somebody look up what his stats were? What Jesus Aguilar, is that his name? Jesus Aguilar, right? Yeah. Look up. I know Rox is typing away.
Yeah. Jesus of Aguilar. Okay.
It's like Rox has hooves, man. Thump, thump, thump,
wow.
thump, thump.
Wow. Okay, 236.
Oh, is that how I'm giving myself away?
Okay, yeah. 12 home runs last year, guys.
12!
So he had... And 236. I don't know how much... 314 at bats. So he definitely played most of the year.
It's unbelievable. I know that he went right into the dumper, and, after that great breakthrough year, well, I guess Santana had his breakthrough year with Milwaukee, too. 30 home runs and 85 ribbies. Sorry?
He was traded.
Aguilar was?
To the Rays. I didn't know that. till just
Oh,
now.
really? Oh, so he's closer to me now. I can go up to the park and watch him play. I mean, the guy was a beast for 1 year. And it's like somebody learned how to pitch him or something. So we'll see what happens with Santana. And then this, I don't want people to say that I never talk about the Indians, although I have reservations about it. I know it's totally politically incorrect. I'm sorry, but it's like, what I don't understand?
What?
Maybe Rox can explain this to me because she's knowledgeable. Halloween antics when you're young. So you go out and you trick or treat, but how in the hell, if you're on a reservation, do you TP somebody's house when their house is a TP? I don't understand. How does that work?
It sounds
Rather
like
tricky.
something. Yeah, it kind of sounds like something that how do you TP a house that is a TP?
Stephen Wright. So yeah, here's the
My
the
favorite,
conundrum.
one of his jokes was I wallpapered my house with a map. 1 mile equals 1 mile.
You have to think about it, or be totally stoned. This is the conundrum for the Cleveland Indians. It doesn't get easier. Tyler Naquin. I mean, why are we even worried about a guy who's hurt? And if I hear about his inside the park home run one more time, I am going to go postal and murder somebody. All right? Tyler Naquin has been hurt every year he's played the game, in the minor leagues and the major leagues. And he's an outfielder who, he goes balls to the wall. He tries really hard, but unfortunately, he doesn't have any power. So why are we worried about him making yet another comeback? Well, he was having the best year he ever had as a pro, but he still had no power, and he ended up hurting himself again. And yes, Rox, it's spelled Naquin, if you're looking that up.
Naquin, not NyQuil.
Well, both of them put you to sleep. And when you take them, you're not feeling well. And finally this is how I'm going to end the program, because these shows will get a little shorter because there's only so many things I can talk about. No engine failure in the Kobe Bryant helicopter crash, which this is going to really come down to pilot error, I think, when all is said and done, that they're going to...
Or bad instrumentation, one of the two.
Yeah, because the way this went down seems awfully... I don't mean went down like that. That's unfortunate. That's inappropriate, too, and I'm sorry. But the way it happened, with the last-minute attempt, it seemed unusual. First of all, you wouldn't be hurtling toward the ground in fog. Because you would want to be trying to climb above the fog. So what really happened there, you're never going to know. But, the pilot was experienced enough to have known better than that, and something's fishy with the whole thing. One thing I wanted to bring up was to Brian, okay? Because James Dean's death, you spoke about in a number of programs ago. Once again, Brian, tell me how James Dean died.
He was heading back to Los Angeles. He was at I believe it was a T crossing or a T intersection. And there was a farmer who was drunk off his ass coming down the road. Dean tried to attempted to pull out in front of him, and he just absolutely got destroyed.
All right, I was watching the show Autopsy, all right? And that is a really interesting show. Next week they're doing Swagger, so it'll be... I know, why do I keep roping you people back into this nonsense? The rod and reel crowd. But no, and it was about James Dean. Unfortunately, it was films of his homosexual activity with Nick Adams, and so I wasn't interested. No, actually, it told the story of how he died. And he had just purchased a Porsche that was a racing car. And this is very interesting because the speculation was, of course, well, he was a hoodlum and a reckless guy because that's who he played in Rebel Without a Cause. By the way, Rox is going to appear in the sequel Treble Without a Cause, and that'll be coming soon to a theater near you. Don't sing.
Well, she already has the
Titanium.
theme song.
No, don't even
Or is
don't
that the
even
closing
encourage
credit?
it. No. But so he was driving with a friend, and just a friend, and it was not Biz Marquee. So his friend was in the passenger seat, and James Dean was in fact driving the car, but there was misinformation that was suggested that he averaged 90 miles an hour in his drive from Los Angeles up, to where he was going for a race, actually, to race this vehicle. And all of this kind of led to speculation. But it turned out that he stopped and he had lunch, and there was a bunch of things, and he only averaged about 52 miles an hour by the time all was said and done. So it wasn't that he was driving over the speed limit or was driving recklessly. What Brian says that is true is what happened was there is a turnoff. It was not a T intersection, but it was a very odd veer off like this. And right at the moment that James Dean veered off to follow the road, a car was coming from that other road in the other direction, the same road that James Dean was turning off of. But the guy was not drunk, all right? He was not drunk, but there is a worse story to be told. The guy who crashed and killed James Dean had a history. He worked at a certain area and he tried to set personal best records in time from work to home. And rather than waiting for James Dean's car to go through that turnoff, he pounded the gas pedal down to try to beat him to the spot, crashed into him. James Dean was crushed instantly. Interestingly, his passenger was thrown clear of the wreck and survived and lived to tell stories. But James Dean, on the other hand, was not dead at the site, as was previously reported. Almost incredibly, an ambulance got there and he was still technically alive, but his neck was broken. All right? And his feet were crushed between the clutch and the accelerator pedal. All right? It was a horrible, horrible way for a person to go. They loaded he and his passenger, and the passenger was so dazed they were in and out of consciousness. James Dean was not dead. And they said it was possible that James Dean could have survived, except that the ambulance didn't get to the hospital in time. And the reason? It had an accident. The goddamn ambulance had a collision, and the ambulance drivers stopped and had to report what they did because they're ambulance drivers, and in those moments that delayed the arrival to the hospital, James Dean was pronounced dead at the hospital. He did not survive the trip, which took much longer than it was supposed to. So an incredible set of circumstances for James Dean, and you want to clear a guy's name because it's really unfair that people would say that he was just driving recklessly. That was just not the case at all. So I thought that was interesting. And sometimes I learn things from watching the autopsy. You know, I'm hoping they do Jimmy Haslam soon. So I guess I'm finished with all of this, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in to this edition of Moohead Radio. And hey, I'm going to keep doing these things. I'm coming back on Monday, and if I won't be talking about swagger again. I ain't gonna be doing that, but there will be something equally tasteless that I take on. Yeah.
By the way, Rox, you got to watch Dead Man's Curve with Richard Hatch. That talks about the Jan and Dean story, and I believe it's Dean that runs into the back of the truck racing his Corvette through the canyons in California.
I do a great Jan and Dean when they did their comeback. You know, I got a '55 Chevy and they call it a Woody.
They call it a Woody, huh?
Boy, you picked up on that.
Didn't get past her on that, huh?
Damn.
Hey.
And she can't wait for Hard Cocks to show back up on HBO TV. So. And now, one final thing. Bronk has requested Rox to sing to save the show. Here we go. Whatever song is in your heart right now, Rox.
Little red Corvette, baby, you're much too fast. Little red Corvette, you need a love that's gonna last. I don't know any songs about Porsches. That's very unfortunate.
Well, they would be German songs, and I really don't think that song was about a Corvette. So
Probably wasn't. It was about a fast woman, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, everything Prince ever wrote. I mean, it's like, hey, did you hear Prince's new song? It's called Cream, and it's like, ah! You know, everything was, you know, it's like, hey, Sheena Easton, you know, hello, I'm going to sing my new song that was written by Prince, Sugar Walls. It's like, no, come inside my sugar walls. You know,
I should have picked that one instead. Next
well, go
time.
ahead. There's still time. No, there's still time. Go ahead.
Come the night inside my sugar wall. Let me take you somewhere you've never been.
You got that right. Yeah. Thanks everybody for and no, Amsterdam, James Dean did not get ass-ended. It was a head-on collision. And nothing about head. Please, I don't want to go over this. Nick Adams knew all about that. Thanks everybody for tuning into this edition of Moohead Radio. Back again on Monday to do it all over again. And until then, hasta la vista, Pasture Heads. Good night.
So did Sal Mineo.